My uncle told me an old joke when I was a kid about a guy who would go fishing all the time out on a little lake. And one day as he was out there fishing, the game warden showed up and the game warden said, what are you doing? He said, oh, I'm just fishing. He said, well, I keep hearing these blasts. I thought maybe somebody was doing some mining around here or something. Well, what do you think all that noise is? The old guy says, I don't know, but you're welcome to go fishing with me. So he gets in the boat and they get out in the lake, and the old guy lights a stick of dynamite and throws it in the lake, and all the fish come floating to the top. And the game warden looks at him and goes, no, you can't do that. That's illegal. That kills the fish. He's like, I know, that makes them easier to get in the basket. He said, you can't do that. That's against the law. The old man lights another stick of dynamite and throws it to the game warden. Well, now the game warden's stuck. What are you going to do? And the game warden looks at him and goes, you can't do this. This is illegal. He said, look, you can argue about it or you can fish. See, there's a reality to leadership, that rules and principles that have applied forever. Well, okay, maybe not forever, ever. Like forever, ever? No, like for as long as there have been human beings involved in the concept of leadership. One group of people influencing another group of people, or one person influencing another group of people. There has been a truth that our human minds communicate in specific ways. Now, some of those ways we've been better at determining than others. And some of those ways we've been better at managing or even manipulating than others. Well, why do we keep doing it? Because it works. Welcome to Leading Leaders Podcast. 5-minute videos, 5 days a week. I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. And yes, there is a strange truth to the reality that there are people who will tell you that brainwashing doesn't work. Brainwashing is a myth. In fact, I challenge you to search that on YouTube or Facebook or anywhere else. Just type in brainwashing, and I'm willing to bet within the first 5 or 10, you'll actually see one where the front tile says brainwashing is a myth. My friends, that's brainwashing. The idea that the meme itself, or the title page itself, the actual cover of the video would tell you that this stuff doesn't work is an exercise in brainwashing all on its own. Now, some people would say brainwashing it's a myth. It's not really what happens. It doesn't really belong in the category that others would put it of mind sciences and manipulation. But as long as I've been studying communication and leadership, I've come across instructional processes that we would call persuasive selling or persuasive conversation. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Pavlov's dogs, the ideas of NLP. All of these are rooted in the fact that the human brain, conscious and subconscious, move at different paces, and that it's easy to trigger both memories from way back when and plant things subconsciously in the mind. The processes of hypnosis do the same thing. So if brainwashing is a myth, if the concept of brainwashing doesn't really work, it's just a pseudoscience that nobody uses, then why do all these techniques stay in play? Well, because it's like fishing with dynamite. It may be the wrong thing to do. It might be a dangerous thing to do, but by golly, it works. That's why people keep doing it. Now you've got to ask yourself the question, have I been brainwashed? And if I was brainwashed, would I know it? The reality is, if the person who brainwashed you was good at what they're doing, then you probably don't know that you were brainwashed. The better question, though, is who would be doing that and why? Well, we do know that Madison Avenue, all of those people surrounded in the concept, and when I say Madison Avenue, I don't mean people who live on a street named Madison. I mean the world of advertising and marketing has been very good at even the basic psychology of when you see a child color a page and they color the entire page in red, and there's no distinguishable art there, it's just red, 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 red. The psychologists talking to that child will probably tell you there's some rage or anger issues in that child's life. Now, whether it's his rage and anger or someone in his life, if there's a lot of red with indistinguishable artwork, there's probably a lot of rage. Now, that's a read-write style of NLP, and what you're doing is reading the behavior to understand the psychology. On the other hand, if you sell a lot of red cars, you sell a lot of cars to people who have a different mindset than people who buy white cars, or people who buy black cars or blue cars or bright yellow cars. It wasn't long ago that if you went to buy a Lexus, any model of Lexus, it came in white, black, gold, or silver. Now you can find some in purple, you can find some in bright yellow, you can find some really audacious ones, and you can find some very customized Lexuses, but generally speaking, higher end cars come in really basic colors because they're not trying to be audacious. That's what the logo is for. You follow me so far? The psychology of color alone is enough to boggle the mind. The way that we emotionally and usually very deeply subconsciously react, our belief systems react to colors. The color of your car, the color of your house, the color of the front door on the house, the color of the mailbox, the color of the street sign. These are all coded indicators that we become used to. And because we become used to them, there's a certain level of comfortability with them. When you start moving outside of those, people get all kinds of messed up. Start painting cars strange colors. Drive down the road and see a car that's camouflaged. Like, I believe it was one of the Roberts boys from the Duck Dynasty who said, I don't care what it is, if you make it camouflage, it looks cool. As he's driving a 1978 Cadillac DeVille. That was a hideous car when it was made. But if you have a purple one or a rosewood one or a bright yellow one or a camouflage one, does one versus the other make it cool? Well, in most people's minds, one or the other of those is going to be cool. Now, political rhetoric has some similar tools. Maybe you've heard the phrase in the last, 5 to 8 years, dog whistle. Well, a dog whistle is a presumed coded message that only a certain number of people will hear and respond to. It's something that triggers something inside of them to behave in a way, or to move in a way, or to think in a way, or to resonate. Okay, that's NLP, that's working on the subconscious mind, that's psychological warfare, it's brainwashing. Yeah, it is brainwashing. It's brainwashing by its very, very definition. The question, though, about brainwashing is, if we know it works, and we know everybody from motivational speakers to sales reps to law enforcement to political rhetoric use brainwashing, then we've got to ask the question, what was its origin, and how long has it been around? And we still have to ask ourselves the question, have I been brainwashed, and would I know it if I was? And what are they brainwashing me for? So let me just take a moment and say, when it comes to brainwashing, one thing you really have to know is that the masters of brainwashing, all right, look it up. Go back to the origins. When did brainwashing start? Who did it? Why did they do it? What was the purpose of it? It almost always the evidence of the strongest, truly exemplified methodology, process, standards, and training goes back to Marxism and Stalinism. It was a way of indoctrinating enemies of the communist state so that you didn't have to go to war. Remember, the best war is the one you never have to fight in. To get your enemy to lay down their arms and not resist you at all. And sometimes that takes convincing them that you are all that in a bag of chips and they ought to be scared even before you show up. Your reputation precedes you. Now, even that art of warfare isn't brand new. You can go back to the days of the Hebrews. And even in the days of the Hebrews, when they showed up at Canaan, 12 people said, let's go see, maybe we can take them, maybe we can't. You know, it's like a scouting team for the volleyball or the football or the soccer team. They go watch the opponent to go, they're pretty good at that, they're really good at that, and maybe we ought to get a little better at this before we take them on. And these 12 people went and looked, and 10 of them came back and went, dude, we don't have a chance. They're like giants. We're like grasshoppers. It's not even a chance. And 2 of them went, no, I think we can take them. The funny thing is, 40 years later, when they actually did engage in the conflict, the enemy said, we knew you were going to crush us. We couldn't figure out what you were waiting on. It was like torment, waiting for you to attack us because we knew you were going to crush us. The enemy defeated itself before the battle even started. But if you look at Just things read into the congressional record in the 1960s about the Communist Party and what they wanted to do in the United States. How they would start to bring down this powerhouse of America by the content that they would put into the school system, the things that they would bring into law enforcement, the things that they would put into movies. Oh, they planned it all out. And over the last few days, I've been studying the concept of brainwashing and listening to the people who have done the work. They create the fog and the confusion. They create alignments and divisions. They get one group of people no longer aligned with the people they've once been aligned with and instead move their allegiances to somewhere else to cause infighting. Not that they really want them to be aligned with them either, just not any longer with them. Oh, it's a deep plot. And if you listen to people like Yuri, and I know he's got another name now, but since the 1980s, he's been testifying in front of all kinds of organizations. He's been on all kinds of media, talking about how even our media has been used by the Communist Party, by the socialists. And I'm not talking about a particular individual who's in charge of another country. I'm talking about the deeper mindset. See, brainwashing is really a long game. If you think that you can do brainwashing in 5 to 10 minutes, well, you might convince someone temporarily to behave in a certain way. You might hypnotize them to act like a chicken for a minute. But most of that's not going to stick for a long period of time unless you're really good at subconsciously planting those things in their mind. Now, if you are, what's going to happen is whatever that trigger is will stay there, and 10 years from now, they're going to cluck like a chicken when they should be answering the question, "Sir, why were you driving so fast?" But for the most part, hypnotism is a temporary solution to a temporary problem, or a temporary solution to a personal, maybe even permanent problem, but it is a fix that happens in a short period of time. The process is made for a short period of time. Brainwashing is designed for a long period of time. And sometimes the long game is what really counts. 40 years from the time they showed up and went, "Yeah, I think we can take them," to "We're coming back to take them." You know, sometimes the worst day, and I'll finish with this. If you think that brainwashing doesn't exist, if you were raised in a home where discipline was present, there was nothing worse than hearing, "Wait till your dad gets home." Oh my gosh, that could last for hours. I know for a fact that hearing that phrase, "wait till your dad gets home," usually meant what you've done is so bad, mom's not even going to deal with it. You just wait till dad gets home and he's going to put the power behind the paddle. Oh man, you know the only thing worse than that? The only thing worse than "you wait till dad gets home" is when your wife looks at you and says, "We need to talk." Because I don't care how angry she is when she says, "We need to talk." That goes right to your soul and it starts working on your subconscious, and your emotions and your mental state just go into a frizzle for the rest of the day. There's nothing worse than for a wife or a girlfriend to say to her husband or boyfriend on the way to work, "When you get home tonight, we need to talk." You might as well just do it now because his day is done. He's not going to accomplish a thing. He's going to be a wreck all day and not even know it mentally. But inside, it's a basket case. It's a mild form of brainwashing. It's because we know that inside there are triggers, emotional triggers, ways that we respond to things that are going on around us. Ask yourself, have I been brainwashed? If so, by who? And for what purpose? As leaders, we need to be responsible for the people around us. We need to be responsible that the information delivered to them is beneficial to them, that we're telling the truth to them, not some variation of the truth that best serves us and doesn't serve them. We are responsible for how we lead. And as leaders, every word has meaning. As leaders, every word leads to a deeper concept of who we are and what we believe. As leaders, we need to know that we are sometimes unintentionally brainwashing people by the emotional pressure that we put on them, by the persuasive techniques that we use around them. And as leaders, we need to understand that that weapon is real. And if we use it without knowledge, without understanding, we can cause damage. I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day. Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.